Two small black children appeared every night outside a ruthless Korean mafia boss's office. No matter how many times he had them removed, they returned. Silent, watchful, waiting. When he finally discovered why, it destroyed him. And then it saved him. If a story about two innocent children melting the heart of Seoul's most dangerous man has you hooked, you need to subscribe right now. Comment below. Would you have followed the Frost King? Drop a red heart if you're ready for this heartbreaking journey. Kang Min-jun didn't believe in omens, but the twins were starting to feel like a curse. At 37, he ruled Seoul's Gangnam district with calculated brutality. The Kang family had controlled the underground for 3 generations: gambling, protection, entertainment, information. He'd inherited his father's empire at 26 after a car bomb meant for him killed his father instead. 11 years of building walls of ice around whatever heart he had left had earned him the nickname Frost King of Seoul. His penthouse above the Golden Dragon Casino was a fortress. Bulletproof windows, ex-military security, and technology that could track a whisper 3 blocks away. He'd survived 8 assassination attempts, 2 government investigations, and his own brother's betrayal. Nothing broke through his armor. Until then, Min-jun was reviewing surveillance footage for weeks ago when he felt it, that crawling sensation on the back of his neck. He looked up sharply. 2 small faces peered through the narrow gap in his office door. He stood abruptly. What the hell? The faces vanished. He strode to the door and yanked it open. The hallway was empty except for 2 of his guards, Jae-sung and Dae-hyun, standing at attention. Did you see children just now?
Min-jun demanded.
The guards exchanged glances. No, Sejangnim, Jae-sung replied, using the respectful term for boss. No one has passed this checkpoint.
Min-jun ist stillzeitend.
Pull the security footage.
Now.
10 minutes later, they found it, 11:47 p.m. exactly. 2 small figures, barely 3 feet tall, somehow slipping past the guard station. The angle was wrong, the lighting poor, but he could make out their small forms approaching his door. How did they get past you? Min-jun's voice was deadly quiet. Sejangnim, I swear, we didn't see. Dae-hyun started. Find them. Find out who they are and who they belong to. And if this is someone's idea of a message, find out who sent them before I lose my patience. Because in Min-jun's world, everything was a message, a threat, a play for power. But the twins appeared again the next night.
Same time.
This time, Min-jun was waiting. The moment he sensed their presence, he moved silently to the door and pulled it open fast. There they were. Dark skin, wide brown eyes, maybe 4 years old. Identical twins, boy and girl. The boy wore a faded Captain America t-shirt, too big for his small frame. The girl clutched a stuffed giraffe with one ear missing. Both had the same heart-shaped faces, the same impossibly large eyes, the same coily hair pulled into small puffs. And both were staring at him with a longing so intense it made his chest constrict. Who are you? Min-jun asked in Korean, then switched to English. Who sent you? The twins didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there, watching him like he held the answers to questions they couldn't ask. Sejangnim, one of his guards rushed up, reaching for the children.
Stop, Min-jun commanded.
Something about the way the little girl flinched, the way the boy stepped protectively in front of his sister, triggered a memory he'd buried deep. Before Min-jun could say anything else, a woman appeared at the end of the hallway, moving fast despite the mop and bucket she was carrying. Zuri. Jabari. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Her English was American accented, urgent with panic. She was black, late 20s, with natural hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing the plain gray uniform of the casino's cleaning staff. The twins ran to her immediately, wrapping around her legs. I am so sorry, Mr. Kang, she said, switching to heavily accented but functional Korean. Please forgive, they keep running from the staff room. I don't know how they. Your children?
Minyoon interrupted.
Yes, sir.
I'm Grace.
Grace Okonkwo. I clean the VIP floors. My supervisor said it was okay to bring them to work after daycare hours because I'm a single mother and… Her words tumbled out in anxious explanation. I promise it won't happen again. I'll find other arrangements. Please don't fire me. I need this job.
Minyoon studied hair.
Late shift cleaner. Single mother. African Nigerian if the name was any indication. Probably on a work visa, which meant she was trapped here, vulnerable. Easy to exploit. His organization didn't officially employ the cleaning company, but they contracted with the casino. He made a mental note to have someone check her background. Keep them in the staff area, he said coldly. This is the only warning. Relief flooded Grace's face. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Come on, babies. But as she tried to lead them away, the little boy, Jabari, looked back at Minjoon over his shoulder. The expression on that small face was so full of desperate hope and something else, something that looked like recognition, that Minjoon felt something twist in his gut. He returned to his office and poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey. His hands were steady, but his mind was not. Those eyes. He'd seen eyes like that before. They came back every night for a week. 11:47 p.m. Like clockwork. Despite Grace's obvious efforts to keep them away, despite locked doors and new supervisors assigned to watch them, the twins found their way to Minjoon's office. They never made demands, never cried, never even spoke. They just appeared, watching him with that soul-deep longing. Minjoon's men wanted to ban Grace entirely, to have her deported, if necessary. But Minjoon found himself saying no, though he couldn't articulate why. On the 8th night, he decided to break the pattern. When 11:47 approached, he opened his door and waited. Sure enough, he heard the soft padding of small feet. The twins rounded the corner, saw him standing there, and froze. Come here, Minjoon said in English, gesturing. They didn't move, but they didn't run either. Minjoon crouched down, making himself less intimidating, a tactical move he'd use with skittish informants. I won't hurt you.
Come.
The little girl, Zuri, took one tentative step forward. Then another. Her brother followed, protective, positioning himself slightly in front of her. Up close, Minjoon could see they were beautiful children. Zuri had a gap between her front teeth when she gave a tiny, uncertain smile. Jabari had a small scar above his left eyebrow, faint but visible. Why do you come here?
Minyoon asked quietly.
What do you want? Jabari opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his sister. Then, in a small voice with an American accent, he said, You look like him. Minjoon's blood went cold. Like who? Our daddy, Zuri whispered, her small hand reaching out to touch the sleeve of Minjoon's expensive suit jacket. You look like our daddy. Before Minjoon could respond, Grace appeared, breathless and panicked.
I'm sorry.
I locked the door, I swear, but they somehow… She stopped, seeing Minjoon crouched at the children's level, Zuri's small hand on his sleeve. Mrs. Okonkwo, Minjoon said, standing slowly. My office.
Now.
Bring them. Grace's face went pale, but she nodded, scooping up Zuri while Jabari clung to her other hand. Minjoon's office was all dark wood, leather, and carefully curated art that cost more than most people's yearly salary. Grace perched on the edge of a chair, both twins in her lap, looking like she was preparing for execution. Tell me about their father, Minjoon said without preamble, pouring himself another whiskey. He didn't offer her one. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I don't understand what this has to do with. They said I look like him. Tell me. Grace swallowed hard, her arms tightening around her children. His name was Kang Ji-hoon. He was Korean. We met in New York 5 years ago. I was working 2 jobs, going to school at night. He said, he was in import-export. Minjoon's hand stilled on his glass.
Kang Ji-hoon.
The name detonated in his mind like a bomb. His younger brother. His only brother. The one who'd betrayed him, who'd tried to sell information to a rival family, who'd stolen $2 million from the organization's accounts and disappeared 3 years ago. The brother Minjun had put a kill order on. Where is he now? Minjun's voice was dangerously quiet. Grace's tears spilled over.
Dead.
He died 14 months ago in a car accident in Lagos. We'd moved there to escape. She caught herself, pressing her lips together. To escape what?
Mignon demanded.
He never told me details. Just said there were dangerous people looking for him, that we had to disappear. We were happy in Lagos. He found work, we had a small apartment, the twins were thriving. Then one night, her voice broke. Drunk driver. Ji-hoon was crossing the street to buy Zuri medicine. She had a fever. The driver ran a red light. He died before the ambulance came. Minjun felt like he'd been punched in the chest.
Yehon.
His baby brother. The brilliant, reckless, idealistic fool who'd wanted to dismantle the family business from the inside, who'd argued with their father about blood money and honor.
Dead.
In Lagos. Leaving behind a Black American woman and mixed-race twins Minjun never knew existed. Why did you come to Seoul? Minjun asked, his tactical mind already piecing together the timeline. Ji-hoon had a safety deposit box. I didn't even know about it until after he died. Inside was some money, documents, and a letter. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should take the twins to Seoul, to his family. That his brother would protect us. Grace laughed bitterly. I didn't even know he had a brother. He never talked about his family, except to say he'd left them behind. He left you money?
Mignon s'asnerot.
About $30,000 US. It was enough to get us here, to survive for a few months while I found work. But Ji-hoon's letter didn't have an address for you, just a name, Kong Minjun, and he said you worked in Gangnam. I didn't know where to start looking, so I took any job I could find. When I got hired at Golden Dragon, I didn't even realize. She gestured around helplessly. And then I saw your photo in the casino's executive hallway. The twins saw it too. And they recognized me. Minjun finished, his mind reeling. Ji-hoon had one photo of you both together. From when you were younger. He kept it in his wallet, showed it to them sometimes. Told them stories about his older brother, who was the strongest, smartest person he knew. The twins are only 4, but they remember faces, and you and Ji-hoon. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. You look so much alike.
Same eyes, same jawline.
To them, you're the closest thing to their father they have left. Minjun walked to the window, staring out at the neon-soaked streets of Gangnam. His reflection stared back. Sharp cheekbones, cold eyes, expensive suit. He did look like Ji-hoon. They'd been mistaken for twins themselves when they were younger, despite the 3-year age gap. His brother had a family, had built a life, had children, and Minjun had ordered him killed. The hit had never been carried out. Ji-hoon had vanished too completely. But the order had stood, open-ended, waiting. If Ji-hoon had ever tried to come home, Minjun's own men would have executed him. Mr. Kong. Grace's voice was small, uncertain. Minjun turned back to face her. The twins were both staring at him with those impossible eyes. Ji-hoon's eyes. Minjun realized with sickening clarity. You will continue working here, Minjun said, his voice returning to its cold, controlled tone. But not as a cleaner. I'm assigning you to administrative work in the casino's hospitality department. Better hours, better pay. You will move into one of the company apartments in Gangnam, safer neighborhood, closer to international schools for the twins. Grace's mouth fell open. I don't understand. Why would you? Because they're family, Minjun interrupted, the words tasting strange in his mouth. And I protect what's mine. He didn't tell her about the kill order. Didn't tell her that her husband had died running from a threat that originated in this very building. Didn't tell her that if Ji-hoon had succeeded in his betrayal, it might have gotten Minjun and a dozen of his men killed. Some truths were too sharp, too dangerous. There are conditions, Minjun continued. You don't discuss my brother with anyone outside this room. You don't mention your connection to my family. As far as anyone knows, you're simply an employee I've taken an interest in promoting. Do you understand? Grace nodded slowly, clearly overwhelmed. And the twins stay away from my office unless I summon them. Even as he said it, Minjun wasn't sure he meant it. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I don't know how to. Don't thank me yet, Minjun said darkly. This world is dangerous, Mrs. Okonkwo. My protection comes with a price. You and your children are now part of that danger whether you like it or not. After Grace left with the twins, Minjun sat in the darkness of his office for hours. He pulled up old security footage from 3 years ago, from the weeks before Ji-hoon disappeared. There, his brother, younger, nervous, clearly planning something. Minjun had been so focused on the betrayal, on the stolen money and the broken loyalty, that he'd never asked why. Never considered that Ji-hoon might have had reasons beyond greed or ambition. His phone buzzed. His head of security, Yoon Taeyong. Sejangnam, I've completed the background check on Grace Okonkwo you requested. She's clean. Nigerian immigrant, student visa turned work visa, no criminal record, no suspicious associations. But there's something you should know.
Tell me.
She's been sending money back to Lagos. To an orphanage. Consistent payments, every month, about 20% of her salary. Minjun closed his eyes. Of course she was. Ji-hoon had always been drawn to people with impossible hearts, people who gave when they had nothing left to give. Keep monitoring, Minjun ordered. And, Taeyong? Pull the file on the Ji-hoon matter. The standing order. I want it terminated. A pause. Sejangnam, are you certain?
He's dead.
The order is irrelevant. Close the file. Understood. Minjun ended the call and poured another drink. Outside, Seoul gleamed and pulsed with life. Somewhere in this city, 2 small children were probably asking their mother about the scary man who looked like their daddy. And Minjun, the Frost King of Seoul, the man who'd built an empire on fear and violence, felt the first crack form in the ice around his heart. The twins didn't come to his office the next night, or the night after that. Minjun told himself it was relief he felt. Order restored. Boundaries maintained. But when 11:47 p.m. came and went on the 3rd night with no small faces appearing at his door, he felt something uncomfortably close to disappointment. Grace had moved into the company apartment, a 2-bedroom in a secure building that housed several of Minjun's legitimate business employees. He'd assigned 2 security guards, disguised as building maintenance, to watch the location. Not because he didn't trust Grace, but because anyone associated with him became a target. The twins were enrolled in Seoul International Academy, one of the best international schools in Gangnam, with tuition paid through a company scholarship program that Minjun had his accountant create that morning. Grace had protested weakly, but Minjun had simply stared at her until she accepted. He told himself it was practical. The twins were Ji-hoon's children, which made them Kong family blood. In his world, blood meant obligation. Nothing more. But on the 5th night without their visit, Minjun found himself pulling up the building's security feed, watching the grainy footage of Grace arriving home from work. The twins ran to her, backpacks bouncing. Zuri was talking animatedly, her small hands gesturing. Jabari showed his mother something he'd drawn at school. It was such a simple, ordinary moment, and it made Minjun's chest ache in a way he hadn't felt since his own father died. Sejangnam, you asked to see me? Yoon Taeyong entered the office, ever professional. Minjun closed the security feed. The Okonkwo family. What's the security assessment? So far, no threats. No one's made the connection between her and Ji-hoon SSI. The twins are adapting well to school. Teachers report they're bright, well-behaved, though Jabari has some behavioral issues. What kind of issues? Protective of his sister. Got into a fight yesterday with an older student who made fun of Zuri's accent. Gave the kid a bloody nose. Taeyeon's expression was carefully neutral, but Minjun caught the hint of approval. Like uncle, like nephew, Minjun thought darkly. Ji-hoon had been the same way. Quick to defend, slow to forgive. Have someone speak to the school. Make sure it's handled quietly. Already done, said Jangnam. After Taeyong left, Minjun sat with his thoughts. He'd spent 5 days trying to forget about 2 small children who'd looked at him like he hung the moon. 5 days trying to convince himself that providing money and security was enough. It wasn't working. At 11:43 p.m., Minjun made a decision he'd probably regret. He grabbed his suit jacket and headed for the elevator. The apartment building was quiet when Minjun arrived. His guards, disguised as maintenance workers, straightened when they saw him but said nothing. Minjun had trained them well. He stood outside apartment 4B for a full minute before knocking. Grace answered, surprise and worry flashing across her face when she saw who it was. She was wearing simple pajamas, her natural hair wrapped in a silk scarf. Mr. Kong, is something wrong? I need to speak with you. And the twins if they're awake. Grace hesitated, then stepped aside. They're getting ready for bed, but come in. The apartment was modest but comfortable. IKEA furniture, children's drawings taped to the walls, toys organized in colorful bins. It smelled like cocoa butter and something baking banana bread, Minjun realized. Mama, who's at the door? Jabari appeared from the hallway, wearing dinosaur pajamas. He froze when he saw Minjun, his small body going rigid. Zuri peeked out from behind her brother, clutching her one-eared giraffe. It's okay, babies, Grace said softly. Mr. Kong just wants to talk. Minjun crouched down again, that tactical move that made him less threatening. Hello, Jabari.
Zuri.
I wanted to see how you're doing at your new school. Jabari's eyes narrowed with the kind of suspicion that shouldn't exist in a 4-year-old.
Why?
Because your father was my brother. That makes us family. Mama says family takes care of each other, Zuri said in her small voice. Your mama is right, but you didn't take care of our daddy, Jabari accused, his voice shaking. He said he had to leave his brother behind. He said it made him sad, but his brother was stuck in the dark and couldn't get out. The words hit Minjun like bullets. Ji-hoon had said that? Had thought that? Jabari, that's not polite, Grace started, but Minjun held up a hand. It's all right. He's not wrong. Minjun looked directly at the boy, this fierce, protective little soul who had Ji-hoon's courage and apparently none of his fear. Your father and I had problems. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. And I can't fix what happened between us. But I can make sure you and your sister are safe. That you have what you need. We don't need money, Jabari said fiercely. Mama works hard. We're okay. Jabari, Grace's voice was sharp now. But Minjun found himself almost smiling, a foreign feeling. You're right again. But maybe you need more than money. Maybe you need someone who knew your father, who can tell you stories about him that your mama doesn't know. That got their attention. Both twins' eyes went wide. You have stories about Daddy? Zuri whispered. Many stories. Your father was brave, reckless sometimes. He made me very angry.
But he was also kind.
He tried to save a dog once when we were children, brought it home even though our father didn't allow pets. Hid it in his room for 3 days before anyone noticed. What happened to the dog? Jabari asked despite himself. Our father made us take it to a shelter. But Ji-hoon visited it every week until someone adopted it. He had a big heart, like someone else I've recently met. Minjun's eyes flickered to Grace, who looked away, cheeks darkening. Zuri took 3 steps forward and did something that shocked Minjun to his core. She climbed into his lap, her small body trusting in a way that made his throat close. Tell us another story, she demanded. And so Minjun, the Frost King of Seoul, the man who'd ordered deaths without flinching, sat on the floor of a modest apartment and told two small children about their father. He told them about Ji-hoon's terrible singing voice, how he'd once entered a karaoke competition and been booed off stage. About how Ji-hoon had been terrified of heights but climbed a tree anyway to rescue a cat. About his obsession with American superhero movies, how he'd made Min-joon watch Iron Man 17 times. He didn't tell them about the violence, the organization, the betrayal. Those were stories for a different time, if ever. As he spoke, Jabari gradually relaxed, eventually sitting close enough that Min-joon could have reached out and touched him. Grace watched from the couch, tears streaming silently down her face. When Zuri yawned, Min-joon realized over an hour had passed. He'd never spent an hour just talking before, not without agendas or negotiations or threats. "Time for bed," Grace said gently, standing. "Will you come back?" Zuri asked Min-joon, her small hand on his cheek. The gesture was so innocent, so trusting, that Min-joon felt something inside him crack wider. "If you want me to." "We want you to," Jabari said quietly. "You're our uncle. Uncle Min." Uncle Min. The title sat strangely on Min-joon's shoulders, heavy with responsibility and something else he couldn't quite name. After Grace tucked the twins in, she walked Min-joon to the door. "Thank you," she said quietly. "They haven't talked about Ji-hoon much since we got here. They were starting to forget him. What you did tonight." "I did it for myself as much as them," Min-joon admitted. "I need to remember him too. The version of him before everything went wrong." Grace studied him with those intelligent eyes. "He loved you, you know. In his letter, the one he left me, he wrote that his biggest regret was leaving you alone. He said you'd become so cold, so hard, and he'd failed to save you from it. He didn't fail. I chose this life."
Did you?
Or did it choose you? Min-joon had no answer for that. As he rode the elevator down, he pulled out his phone and looked at the only photo he had of Ji-hoon, a picture from 15 years ago, both brothers in suits at their father's birthday party. They'd been close then. Before the organization consumed everything. Before Ji-hoon started questioning, and Min-joon started hardening. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but Min-joon's security software identified it immediately as coming from the apartment he'd just left. It was a photo. Zuri, already in bed, holding up a drawing she'd made. 3 stick figures, 1 tall, 2 small. Above them, in Grace's handwriting, Uncle Min, Jabari, and Zuri. Min-joon stared at that drawing for the entire ride back to the casino. And for the first time in 11 years, he felt something other than ice in his chest. He felt the terrifying, dangerous warmth of hope. For 3 weeks, Min-joon's life fell into a strange, new rhythm. Days were business as usual, meetings with family heads, enforcement of territorial agreements, laundering operations through legitimate fronts. The Frost King maintained his empire with the same calculated precision. But nights became different. 3 times a week, Min-joon found himself at apartment 4B. He told himself it was security oversight, making sure Grace and the twins were safe. But the truth was more complicated. The twins had somehow bypassed every defense he'd spent decades building. Zuri with her gap-toothed smile and absolute faith that he would always catch her when she jumped. Jabari with his fierce protectiveness and the way he was starting to copy Min-joon's mannerisms, the way he stood, the way he observed people. And Grace. God, Grace was becoming a problem. She was nothing like the women who usually orbited Min-joon's world, the socialites chasing his money, the hostesses chasing his power. Grace had steel in her spine, raising 2 children alone in a foreign country, working brutal hours, learning Korean from textbooks she bought secondhand. She called him out when he was too harsh with the twins, laughed at his terrible attempts to cook, saw through his armor like it was made of rice paper. "You're brooding again," Grace said one evening, handing him tea while the twins played with blocks in the living room. "Is it business?" "It's always business." "Must be lonely. All that power, and no one to share it with.
Minhyun looked at her sharply.
Loneliness is safer than trust in my world. Maybe, but it's also emptier. Grace settled onto the couch beside him, close but not touching. They developed this careful dance, awareness crackling between them but neither acting on it. Uncle Min, watch. Zuri called out, showing off a tower she'd built. Very impressive, little one, Minjun replied in English. His English had improved significantly in 3 weeks, though his accent still made the twins giggle. Now knock it down, Zuri demanded. Why would I destroy something you worked hard to build? Because it's fun. And then we build it again better. There was something profound in that childish logic, but Minjun didn't have time to contemplate it because his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and felt his blood go cold. Park Sang-woo was calling, the head of the Busan faction, a man who'd been Ji-hoon's closest friend in the organization before the betrayal. I need to take this, Minjun said, standing and moving to the hallway.
Sang-woo. Minhyun.
We need to meet. There's a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that involves your brother. Tomorrow. Noon. The usual place. The line went dead. Minjun stood very still, his mind racing. Sang-woo knew Ji-hoon was dead. Minjun had informed the family heads when he'd closed the kill order file. So what problem could involve a dead man? Unless someone had discovered Ji-hoon's family. Unless someone had made the connection. Minhyun. Grace appeared in the hallway, concern on her face. You look like you've seen a ghost. I need to go, Minjun said abruptly. Don't leave the apartment tomorrow. Keep the twins home from school. The guards will be on alert. What's happening? Are we in danger? Minjun wanted to lie, to protect her from the truth. But Grace deserved better than lies.
Possibly.
I'll know more tomorrow. But until I tell you it's safe, you stay here. Understood? Grace's expression hardened with fear but also determination. We've run before. If we need to run again. You're not running anywhere, Minjun interrupted. You're mine to protect now. And I don't fail. The possessiveness in his tone surprised them both. After he left, Grace stood in the hallway for a long moment, her heart pounding. She'd known from the beginning that Minjun's world was dangerous. But knowing it intellectually and feeling the sharp edge of that danger were two different things. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she kept hidden in a locked folder. Ji-hoon, healthy and smiling, holding the twins when they were newborns. He looked so much like Minjun it still hurt. I hope I made the right choice coming here, she whispered to the photo. I hope your brother is the man you said he was. In the living room, Jabari and Zuri continued playing, blissfully unaware that their small world was about to be tested. The meeting place was a private room in a traditional Hanok restaurant in Bukshan. Neutral territory. Minjun arrived with Yoon Taeyong and 2 other guards, all armed. Park Sang-woo was already there, along with his lieutenant. Sang-woo was 50, gray-haired, with a scar running from his left ear to his jaw, a souvenir from the territorial wars of the 90s. Hyung, Minjun greeted, using the respectful term for an older male. They'd known each other for 20 years. You sounded urgent.
Seat.
We need to talk about the American woman and the children. Minjun's expression didn't change, but his hand moved imperceptibly closer to the gun holstered under his jacket. What about them? Don't play games, Minjun. You're too smart for that. You've moved a foreign national into company housing, enrolled mixed-race children in an expensive international school, and you're visiting their apartment 3 times a week. People notice. People talk. And what business is it of theirs?
Sang-woo sighed.
Normally?
None.
But when someone sent me these... He slid a manila envelope across the table. Minjun opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Grace leaving work. The twins at school. And his blood froze. A photo of him entering apartment 4B. Zuri in his arms. But the worst photo was at the bottom. A DNA test result. Taken from where, he didn't know. But it confirmed what he'd already known. Jabari and Zuri were Ji-hoon's biological children. Who took these? Minjun's voice was deadly quiet. I don't know. They were sent anonymously to 3 of the family heads, including me. But Minjun, if I have them, others do too. And they're going to ask questions. What kind of questions? Whether you've gone soft. Whether you're letting family loyalty cloud your judgment. Whether a man who protects his traitor brother's bastard children can still be trusted to protect the organization. The word bastard made Minjun's vision go red, but he kept his voice controlled. Ji-hoon is dead. These children are innocent. What threat do they pose? Their leverage, Sang-woo said bluntly. Anyone who wants to hurt you now knows exactly how to do it. You've shown weakness, Minjun. In our world, weakness gets you killed. Are you threatening me, Hyung? I'm warning you. As a friend. As someone who loved Ji-hoon too, despite what he did. There are family heads who think you're making a mistake. Who think you should distance yourself from the woman and children. Maybe send them back to America. That's not happening. Sang-woo's eyes narrowed. Then you need to be prepared for what comes next. Because someone sent these photos for a reason. Someone wants to see how you'll react. And if you show continued weakness, they'll move against you. Let them try. Minjun, think about what you're saying. You're willing to risk everything, your position, your safety, the stability of the entire organization for a woman and 2 children you barely know. Minjun stood, his decision crystallizing with absolute clarity. They're my blood. Ji-hoon's children. That makes them mine. And anyone who touches what's mine will learn why I'm called the Frost King. He left the restaurant with his heart pounding and his mind calculating. Someone was making a move, testing him, trying to find his weak spots. And they'd succeeded. Because Grace and the twins were his weakness now. A weakness he'd protect with everything he had. When he returned to the casino, he called an emergency meeting with his inner circle, Yoon Tae-young, his financial advisor Choi Min-seo, and his information broker Lee Sun-hee. Someone surveilling the Okonkwo family, Minjun said, without preamble. I want to know who, why, and how long it's been going on. Pull every camera feed within a kilometer of their apartment and the school. Trace the DNA test, find out where the sample came from. And put additional security on them immediately. Sejangnam, Lee Sun-hee said carefully. If you increase security, it confirms they're important to you. It might escalate the situation. It's already escalated. Now I'm deciding how it ends. Over the next 48 hours, Minjun's team worked around the clock. They discovered the surveillance had started 3 days after Grace moved into the apartment. The DNA test had been conducted using samples taken from the twins' school, a swab from Jabari's water bottle. The photos had been sent from an internet cafe in Itaewon. Untraceable. Professional. Which meant someone in the organization was behind it. Someone with resources and patience. Minjun ran through the list of possibilities. Rival families were unlikely. They'd attack directly, not with psychological warfare. It had to be internal. Someone who wanted to destabilize him, to prove he was unfit to lead. His phone buzzed.
Grace.
Minjun, there are more guards outside. What's going on? Precaution. Are the twins okay? They're fine, but they can feel something's wrong. Jabari keeps asking if we have to run again. Minjun, please. Tell me what's happening. He told her. All of it. The photos, the DNA test, the implied threats. Grace was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. Send us back to America. End this before it gets worse.
No. Minjun, be reasonable.
We're not worth a war. You're worth everything, he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. You and the twins. You're the first real thing I've had in my life since Ji-hoon left. I'm not letting that go. This is crazy. You barely know us. I know enough. I know Zuri hums when she's concentrating. I know Jabari has nightmares about the accident that killed his father. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you're terrified of being a burden. I know that when you laugh, really laugh, it sounds like music. And I know that for the first time in 11 years, I wake up feeling something other than ice. Silence. Lin, Mignon? I'm going to find who's behind this. And I'm going to end it. But I need you to trust me.
Can you do that?
I want to. God, I want to. But every time I start to feel safe, to think maybe we could have a life here, something reminds me that your world is built on violence. It is.
I won't lie about that.
But that violence can protect as well as destroy. And right now, all of it is pointed at keeping you and the twins safe. That's not sustainable, Minjun. Eventually, something will give. Then we make sure it's not us that breaks. After he hung up, Minjun stared at his reflection in the window. Grace was right. This couldn't last. His world and hers were incompatible. But he'd spent 11 years being the Frost King. Maybe it was time to be something else.
Or someone would force his hand.
The attack came on a Tuesday night. Minjun was in a late meeting when Yoon Taeyong burst in, his usual composure shattered. Sejangnam. The apartment. There's been an incident. Minjun was moving before Taeyong finished speaking. His blood turned to ice. He made it from the casino to the apartment in 8 minutes, breaking every traffic law. The building's lobby was chaos. Police cars, ambulances, residents evacuated. Minjun's guards stood at attention, but their faces were grim. Report, Minjun barked in Korean. Fire in apartment 4B, one guard said. Started in the kitchen. The family got out safely, but Minjun didn't wait for the rest. He shoved past police tape, taking the stairs 3 at a time. At the 4th floor, he saw them. Grace sat on the floor in the hallway, both twins wrapped in emergency blankets, her arms around them. Soot streaked her face. Zuri was crying. Jabari stared straight ahead with shocked eyes. Grace. Minjun dropped to his knees beside them. She looked up, and the relief in her eyes was immediately replaced by fury. This was your world, she said, her voice shaking. Someone tried to kill us. The investigator said the fire started from a gas leak, but there was no gas leak this morning. Someone tampered with it. Minjun looked at his guards. Get them to the casino.
Présidentielle suite.
Full security detail. I'm not going anywhere with you, Grace said, pulling the twins closer. We're done. We're leaving Seoul tonight. Grace, please.
No.
Her voice broke. My children could have died. Jabari pulled Zuri out of her room through the smoke. He's 4 years old, Minjun. He shouldn't have to know how to save his sister from a fire. Minjun felt something crack inside him. She was right. This was his fault. His world. His enemies. But the thought of them leaving, of never seeing Zuri's gap-toothed smile or Jabari's fierce protectiveness or Grace's strength, it was unbearable. One more day, Minjun said quietly. Give me one more day to make this right. If I can't, I'll arrange safe passage back to America. Money. New identities. Whatever you need. But please, one more day. Grace stared at him, tears streaming down her face.
Why?
Why do you care so much? Because I love you, Minjun said, the truth ripping out of him. All 3 of you. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. But I do. And I can't let you go without a fight. The twins had stopped crying, watching this exchange with wide eyes. You love us, Zuri whispered. Minjun looked at her. This beautiful, brave little girl who'd made him feel human again. Yes. Even though we're not Korean? Jabari asked, his voice small and uncertain. The question broke Minjun's heart. Especially because of who you are. You're Ji-hoon's children. You're brilliant and brave, and you've taught me what it means to be family. Grace's expression crumbled.
Minyon, I can't.
This is too dangerous. I can't watch my children live in fear. You won't have to. I promise you. One day. Please. Finally, Grace nodded. One day. But if you can't fix this, we're gone. Min-jun spent that night hunting. He called in every favor, activated every informant, leaned on every source he had. The fire had been professionally done, almost untraceable. But almost was enough for Lee Sun-hee. She found it at 4 a.m., a payment from a shell company to a freelance arsonist. The shell company led back to another company, which led to a real estate holding, which finally traced back to a name Min-jun knew well. Kwon Jae-suk, his own cousin, second in line to lead the Kong family after Min-jun. The betrayal was acid in Min-jun's throat, but the tactical part of his brain understood immediately. Jae-suk had always been ambitious, always resentful that Min-jun had inherited leadership instead of him. The twins were the perfect excuse, proof that Min-jun was weak, that he'd put personal feelings above organizational loyalty. By sunrise, Min-jun had Jae-suk in an abandoned warehouse in Incheon. "You tried to kill children," Min-jun said, his voice eerily calm. "My brother's children." Jae-suk, zip-tied to a chair, laughed bitterly. "Your brother was a traitor. Those half-breed bastards are an embarrassment to the Kong name. You've made us look weak, young, playing house with a foreign maid and her mongrel brats." The racial slur made Min-jun see red. He moved fast, his fist connecting with Jae-suk's jaw with enough force to crack bone. "Say it again," Min-jun invited softly. "Give me a reason." "The family heads agree with me." Jae-suk spat blood. "You're compromised. They're planning to call a vote. To remove you. Let them try. You're willing to die for them? For strangers? They're not strangers. They're family. Something you've never understood." Min-jun pulled out his phone and made a call. "Bring them all here. Every family head. Every lieutenant. Now." Within 2 hours, the warehouse was filled. The entire leadership structure of the Kong organization, plus allied families. 30 men, all armed, all dangerous. Park Sang-woo looked troubled. "Min-jun, what's this about?" "Kwon Jae-suk tried to murder my niece and nephew last night. He orchestrated the fire, the surveillance, the photographs. He did it to make me look weak, to position himself for a leadership challenge." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The children are a liability," Kwon Jae-suk said loudly, playing to the room despite his injuries. "Ji-hoon was a traitor. Why are we protecting his offspring?" "Because they're innocent," Min-jun said. "And because I say so." "That's not enough anymore," another family head said. "Jae-suk's right. You've changed, Min-jun. You're making decisions based on emotion, not strategy. That's dangerous." Min-jun looked around the room at these men. Some he'd known his whole life, some he'd bled with, some he'd saved, and some who'd saved him. "You're right," he said quietly. "I have changed. The twins and their mother have made me see what we've become. We call ourselves a family, but we kill each other over territory and money. We preach loyalty, but celebrate betrayal if it's profitable. We claim honor while dealing in pain." "So, what are you saying?" Park Sang-woo asked. "That you're leaving the organization?" Min-jun took a breath. This was the moment. The choice. "I'm saying that I'm reshaping it. The Kong family is evolving. We're going legitimate, real estate, technology, entertainment. The illegal operations will be phased out over 5 years. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave with a generous severance package. Anyone who actively opposes it." He looked at Jae-suk. "Will be removed." The room erupted. "You can't just decide that alone. This is insane. The other organizations will never allow it." Min-jun pulled out his gun and fired once into the ceiling. Silence fell. "This is not a democracy," he said coldly. "This is a dictatorship."
My dictatorship.
"My father built this empire on blood. I'm going to transform it into something that won't destroy everyone it touches. You can join me, or you can leave, but you cannot stop me." "The vote," Jae-suk croaked. "Call the vote. Let them decide."
Min-jun looked at Park Sang-woo.
"You've been in this life longer than anyone here. You knew my father. What would he say? Sangwoo was quiet for a long moment. Your father was a great man and a terrible father. He built an empire but lost both his sons, one to rebellion, one to ice. If these children can melt that ice, make you human again, then maybe Ji-hoon's death wasn't meaningless. Maybe his legacy is giving you a reason to be better. He stepped forward.
He votes for Minhyun.
For the changes. All of them. One by one, others stepped forward. Not all. Some walked out. Some would have to be dealt with later. But enough stayed. Enough believed. Jae-suk stared in disbelief. You're all fools. This will destroy us. No, Minjun said. It will save us. When Minjun returned to the casino, it was late afternoon. He was exhausted, covered in other people's blood, and carrying the weight of having just irrevocably changed his world. Yoon Taeyong met him at the elevator. The family is in the presidential suite. They're safe. Minjun nodded and headed up. He found Grace sitting by the window, the twins asleep on the massive bed. She stood when she saw him, taking in his appearance, the blood, the exhaustion, the hollowness in his eyes. Is it over? She asked quietly. It's over. Jae-suk will be dealt with. The threats are neutralized. You're safe. And the price? I'm restructuring the organization. Going legitimate. It'll take years, but... He sat heavily on the couch. I can't be the Frost King anymore. Not if I want to be Uncle Min. Grace sat beside him. That's a huge decision. It's the only decision. I won't have Jabari and Zuri grow up in a world where violence is normal, where people try to kill them because of me. I won't have you looking over your shoulder every day. Minjun, you can't change your entire life for us. I'm not. I'm changing it for me. You three just showed me why I should. Grace took his hand, the first time she'd initiated contact. When Ji-hoon died, I thought that was it. No more love, no more family beyond the twins. Then we came here, and you were so cold, so scary. But every day, you showed us more of who you really are. The man Ji-hoon remembered. The brother he loved. Ji-hoon didn't love me at the end. He ran from me.
No.
He ran from what you'd become. But he never stopped believing you could find your way back. That's why he told me to find you. Minjun looked at her. This strong, beautiful woman who'd traveled across the world on the hope that a man she'd never met would protect her children. I'm falling in love with you, Grace said softly. I don't want to. It's too soon after Ji-hoon. It's too complicated. But I am. I already fell, Minjun admitted. Weeks ago. They sat in silence, hands linked, watching the twins sleep. Outside, Seoul sparkled. Inside, something new was being born from the ashes of the old. On the bed, Jabari stirred, opened his eyes. He saw Minjun and Grace sitting together and smiled before drifting back to sleep. That smile, Minjun thought, was worth every risk, every change, every battle ahead. 6 months later, the transformation was real. The COM organization had split into 2 entities, the legitimate businesses under a new corporate structure, and the old operations being systematically dismantled or sold off to other families. Minjun had lost roughly 40% of his income but gained something infinitely more valuable, the ability to sleep at night. Grace had been promoted to Director of International Relations for Kong Enterprises, a real position with real responsibilities, not charity. Her fluency in English, Igbo, and increasingly Korean made her invaluable in the company's expansion into African and American markets. The twins were thriving. Jabari had become the unofficial protector of the smaller kids at Seoul International Academy. Zuri had discovered a love for painting, and Minjun's office now displayed her colorful, chaotic artwork alongside million-dollar pieces. And Minjun himself had become someone he barely recognized. He still commanded respect, still made hard decisions, but the ice had melted. His nickname had changed from Frost King to Steel King, strong but no longer frozen. He and Grace had moved slowly, carefully. First dates that felt like teenage fumbling. Learning each other's histories, scars, dreams. Grace told him about growing up in Atlanta, about her Nigerian parents' expectations, about meeting Ji-hoon and falling for his idealism. Min-jun told her about the pressure of inheriting too young, about watching his brother's idealism curdle into rebellion, about building walls to survive. The twins had adjusted to seeing them together with the easy acceptance of children. Uncle Min is Mama's boyfriend. Zuri had announced to her class, causing both Grace and Min-jun to have a complicated conversation with the teacher about privacy. But it was Jabari who asked the hard question one evening. They were in Min-jun's penthouse. Grace and the twins had moved in 3 months ago, a decision that still made Min-jun wake up grateful every morning. Min-jun was helping Jabari with a school project about family trees. Uncle Min, Jabari said, his small face serious. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you going to marry Mama? Min-jun glanced over at Grace, who was helping Zuri braid her doll's hair. She'd frozen, clearly listening. Would that be okay with you?
Min-jun asked carefully.
If I did. Jabari was quiet, his fingers tracing the family tree drawing. I loved my daddy. I don't remember him much anymore, but I loved him. I know. That's okay. But I love you too. Is that bad? Can I love both my daddies?
Min-jun's throat closed.
He pulled Jabari onto his lap. Listen to me. Your heart is big enough to love many people. Loving me doesn't mean you forget your first daddy. He'll always be your father. I'm just an addition. Okay. Like when Mama makes her soup and adds more ingredients to make it better? Min-jun laughed, the sound still foreign to his own ears even after months of practice. Exactly like that. Then yes, you should marry Mama. Our family's soup needs you. That night, after the twins were asleep, Min-jun and Grace sat on the balcony under the Seoul stars. Jabari gave his blessing, Min-jun said. I heard. Grace smiled. Was that a proposal?
No.
When I propose, you'll know. It'll be properly done. I don't need properly. I've seen your world, Min-jun. I know what I'm signing up for. That's exactly why it needs to be proper. You deserve romance, Grace. Courting. All of it. Just because my life has been violent doesn't mean our future has to be. Grace leaned her head on his shoulder. You know what Ji-hoon told me once? He said you were the strongest person he knew because you could carry the weight of the family without breaking. But he worried you'd forgotten how to carry anything else. Anything lighter. I had forgotten. Until 2 small children wouldn't stop following me. They followed you because they saw what I see. Someone worth following. A month later, Min-jun did it properly. He took Grace to Bukshin Hanok Village, to a traditional Korean house he'd bought and renovated. The twins were with his mother, a relationship that had been awkward at first, but was warming. His mother had cried the first time she met her son's children, seeing Ji-hoon's features in their faces. What is this place? Grace asked, taking in the beautiful traditional architecture mixed with modern amenities. Our home. If you'll have it. The penthouse is mine, my old life. This is ours. Somewhere the twins can have a yard where we can make new memories. He led her to the garden, where he'd set up a traditional Korean ceremony space mixed with African fabrics, Ghanaian Kent cloth draped alongside Korean silk. I wanted to honor both of us, Min-jun explained. Your heritage and mine. Because our family is built on bridges, not walls. He knelt, something he'd never done for anyone, and pulled out a ring. Simple platinum with 3 stones, diamond, emerald, ruby. For the 5 of us, he explained. You, me, Jabari, Zuri, and Ji-hoon's memory. Grace Okonkwo, you crashed into my life with 2 children who saw through every defense I'd built. You showed me that strength isn't about being untouchable, it's about having something worth protecting. Will you marry me? Build this new life with me? Let me spend every day trying to be worthy of you and the twins. Grace was crying, laughing, nodding all at once.
Yes. Yes.
1,000 times yes. The wedding was small, held in that same garden 3 months later. The twins served as best man and maid of honor, a decision that made everyone cry. Park Sang-woo attended, as did several of the legitimate business partners. Grace's parents flew in from Atlanta. Her father had needed convincing that his daughter marrying a reformed Korean crime boss was a good idea.
Mignon or traditional Korean hanbok.
Grace wore a stunning combination of white wedding dress and Nigerian geli headwrap. The ceremony mixed Korean and Nigerian traditions, creating something entirely new. When they exchanged vows, Min-jun spoke in English, still slightly accented. I promise to be the man your children see when they look at me. To protect without smothering, to lead without controlling, to love without conditions. You've given me a reason to be better. I'll spend my life proving I can be. Grace's vows were in Korean, learned phonetically but delivered perfectly. I promise to stand beside you through every transformation, every challenge. To be your partner, your conscience, your home. You've given my children a future and given me hope. That's a gift I'll treasure forever. When they kissed, Zuri cheered so loudly the entire garden laughed. At the reception, Jabari pulled on Min-jun's sleeve. Are you our daddy now? For real? Min-jun crouched down to his level. If you want me to be. We want you to be, Zuri said, joining her brother. You're daddy Min now, not uncle. Min-jun looked at Grace, who nodded, her eyes wet. Then I'm your daddy, Min-jun said, pulling them both into a hug. And you're stuck with me. Good, Jabari said firmly. We like being stuck with you. The house in Bukshan had become a home. Zuri's paintings covered the walls. Jabari's soccer trophies lined the shelves. Grace's garden flourished with both Korean vegetables and Nigerian peppers. Min-jun's office still contained ledgers and business plans, but now also housed finger-painted cards and family photos. The transformation of the Kong organization was complete. They were fully legitimate: tech investments, real estate, entertainment. Min-jun still had enemies, but they were corporate now, fought in boardrooms instead of back alleys. He'd lost the respect of some old-timers who thought he'd gone soft. But he'd gained something more valuable: the ability to come home without blood on his hands. Grace was pregnant with their first biological child together, a daughter they planned to name Ji-hee, honoring Ji-hoon's memory. The twins, now 6 years old, were excited about becoming big siblings. One evening, Min-jun found Jabari sitting in the hallway outside what used to be Min-jun's bedroom, now the twins' shared room. What are you doing out here, son?
Mignon asked.
Jabari looked up, his face thoughtful. I was remembering when Zuri and I used to wait outside your office. Do you remember? I remember. You scared me half to death. Why did we scare you? Min-jun sat down beside him, these conversations with Jabari becoming more frequent as the boy grew older and more aware. Because I didn't know how to love people back then. You and Zuri showed up and demanded that I learn. Mama says our first daddy sent us to you, that he knew you needed us. Your mama is very wise. Do you think our first daddy would like you? The question hit Min-jun in the chest. I hope so. We had problems, your daddy and I. We hurt each other. But I think he'd be happy to know you and Zuri are safe and loved. I think he would too, Jabari said seriously. Because you're a good daddy. You read to us and teach us taekwondo, and you don't get mad when we make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Jabari. The important thing is learning from them. Like you learned from your mistakes with our first daddy? Min-jun pulled his son close. Exactly like that. You and Zuri taught me that it's never too late to become who you should have been. Later that night, Min-jun stood in the twins' doorway, watching them sleep. Zuri was sprawled across her bed, her one-eared giraffe still clutched tight despite having a room full of new toys. Jabari slept curled up, always protective even in dreams. Grace came up behind him, resting her head on his shoulder, her pregnant belly pressed against his back. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. "I was thinking about the first time I saw them. How annoying I found their persistence. How much I wanted them to just go away and leave me alone. And now I can't imagine a life without them. Without you. Without this family we've built. No regrets about leaving the old life behind?" Minjun turned to face her. "I left behind violence and ice. I didn't leave behind strength or purpose. I just redirected it towards something that matters." Spoken like a true reformed gangster, Grace teased.
Former gangster. Minjun corrected.
"I'm a businessman now. A very boring businessman who coaches youth soccer and attends PTA meetings." "You threatened the soccer coach last week when he yelled at Jabari." "I didn't threaten him. I simply suggested that positive reinforcement yields better results." Very calmly. "While doing that thing with your eyes that makes people confess to crimes they didn't commit."
Minjun smiled.
"Can I help it if people find me intimidating?" Grace laughed, and the sound still made his heart race. "Come to bed, Frost King. I thought I was Steel King now. Tonight you're just Min, my husband, father of my children, and the man who somehow became exactly who we needed." As they walked to their bedroom, Minjun thought about the journey that had brought them here. 2 small children who wouldn't stop following him. A woman who saw past his armor to the man beneath. A brother whose death had paradoxically given Minjun life. On the nightstand was a photo Minjun had framed months ago. It showed him, Grace, and the twins at Namsan Tower, all of them laughing at something Zuri had said. But in the corner, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it, was another photo, Ji-hoon, young and smiling, from before everything went wrong. "Do you think he knows?"
Minjun asked quietly.
"Your brother?"
"Yes."
"Do you think he knows that his children saved me? That his death, his letter, his hope that I could be better, do you think he knows it worked?" Grace took his hand. "I think if there's any way for him to know, he does. And I think he's grateful. Not for dying, but for the life his death made possible. That's a heavy burden to carry. Then it's good you're not carrying it alone anymore." Minjun pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her body, the steady beat of her heart, the small movements of their daughter growing inside her. For so many years, he'd believed love was weakness. That caring made you vulnerable. That the only safety was in isolation and ice. 2 persistent children had proven him wrong. They'd followed him because they saw their father's face in his. But they'd stayed because they'd seen something else, the man Minjun could become if he just let himself thaw. And in saving them, in protecting them, in learning to love them, Minjun had saved himself. The Frost King was gone. In his place was simply Min, husband, father, brother's keeper, and guardian of the family that grief and love had woven together. Jabari was 10 when he finally asked the question. They were in Minjun's study, now a shared space where Minjun worked and the kids did homework. Zuri was absorbed in a painting. Their little sister, Ji-hee, now 2 years old, was helping by adding handprints to everything. Their baby brother, Kwame, named for Grace's father, slept in a bassinet nearby. "Daddy Min," Jabari said, looking up from his history textbook. "Can I ask you something important?" "Always." "Why did you let us stay? When we first started following you, you could have sent us away. You could have fired Mama. Why didn't you?" Minjun set down his pen. This question had been coming for years. Jabari was too smart, too observant not to eventually ask. "Honestly, at first I was just confused, then irritated. Then," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Then I saw something in your eyes and Zuri's eyes that I recognized." "What did you see?"
"Loss."
"Loneliness. The desperate hope that someone, somewhere, would show up and make things okay again. I saw my own childhood staring back at me. Because your daddy died too?"
"Yes."
"And because I'd spent 26 years building walls to keep that pain out. But you and Zuri, you just climbed right over those walls like they weren't even there." Zuri looked up from her painting. Did you want us to climb your walls?
Minyon smiled.
At first, no. But then I realized you weren't trying to hurt me or take something from me. You were just looking for someone to love you. And I'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed like that. So we saved you? Jabari asked. You absolutely saved me. I was dying inside, son. I just didn't know it. You and your sister and your mother, you showed me what it meant to be alive. I'm glad we followed you, Zuri said simply. Me too, baby girl. Me too. That night, Minjun found Grace in their bedroom, preparing for bed. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Jabari asked why I let them stay, he said. What did you tell him? The truth. That they saved me. Grace turned in his arms. You know what the real reason was? Why the twins kept following you? Tell me. Because children have an instinct for goodness. Beneath the Frost King, beneath the violence and the ice, they saw the man you were meant to be. The man Jihoon always knew was in there. They followed you because they recognized you as theirs, even before you knew it yourself. That's a lot of faith to put in a 4-year-old's instincts. Children see clearly. Adults complicate things. Jabari and Zuri just knew that the scary man in the expensive suit had kind eyes and sad shoulders. And they decided you needed them as much as they needed you. Minjun thought about that. About 2 small children with their impossible hearts and their unshakable certainty that he was worth following. They were right, he said quietly. I did need them. I needed all of you. And now you're stuck with us. Gladly stuck. Forever stuck. Irrevocably, completely, happily stuck. Grace kissed him softly. The Frost King would never say something so sappy. Good thing he's dead, then. Long live the man who gets to read bedtime stories and attend ballet recitals and build Lego towers. Long live Daddy Min, Grace agreed. Later, Minjun did his nightly rounds, checking on each child. Jihi was sprawled like a starfish, her black and Korean features a perfect blend of both heritages. Kwame slept peacefully, his tiny fist curled near his face. And in their room, Jabari and Zuri slept soundly, no longer small toddlers, but growing children who'd given him everything by asking for nothing but his presence. On Zuri's wall was a painting she'd made at school. It showed a dark hallway, 2 small children, and a tall man with sad eyes. Underneath, in her careful handwriting, the day we found Daddy Min. Minjun stood there for a long time, remembering. The confusion, the irritation, the slow thaw, the transformation. The twins had kept following him because they saw their father in his face. They'd stayed because they saw a future in his heart. And in the end, that was the reason that broke his heart. Not with pain, but with the overwhelming force of love he'd thought himself incapable of feeling. They'd followed a monster and found a man. They'd followed a stranger and claimed him as family. They'd followed the Frost King and melted him into Daddy Min. And in doing so, they'd given him the greatest gift, the chance to be someone worth following back.